Today we're going to talk about a topic of discussion amongst almost all ranked solo queue players, which is how do you carry when it is only you doing well on your team and everybody else is feeding horrendously. This means that you have end scores of like 18 kills, 2 deaths, 20 assists, and you still lose. So, how are we going to solve that, or how to increase the win rate in games like that? So there's a couple of things that are very crucial to this. And the first thing is to recognize that you are going to have some games that you're going to have those scores and you will not be able to win them. Period. You cannot win every game. As hard as you try, you may have a perfect game, but it's a team game. And there are some of those games that you will lose. So be prepared for that and don't get overly frustrated. A good technique for that is setting yourself up with minor goals that are not winning throughout the game. So, for instance, one of the common goals that I like to set myself with are either practicing a lot of skill shots. So I'll be playing champions like Nidalee or Sejuani and just thinking, okay, my only goal for this game is going to be to hit every skill shot. And it's very satisfying, win or lose, if I've met the other side goals that I have on top of ones like fix your macro play. Things like my only goal for this game is to not be picked off by myself, which means that you know how to play defense, you know how to read the opponent and when they're looking to pick someone off and when you can play accordingly. So setting your goals eases the frustration, but that's a topic for another time. I just wanted to dabble a little bit into that, but recognizing that you're not going to win them all. And then here's a big one. And a lot of people don't seem to grasp this concept well. You need your teammates. Even if they are 0-10 and are completely useless in your eyes, you need them. You're not going to win without them. This does not mean that you need them for damage, you need them for their items, you need them for their spells or whatnot. You need them for their pressure. And this is very important because without the pressure, you're not going to be able to control the map by yourself. The map is too large and you don't have teleport up every 10 seconds. So you need your teammates. We're going to talk about how to make sure that you can have your teammates be useful towards a later half of the video. But for now, keep that in mind. You need them. Next up, this is one that takes a little bit more of experience, but with enough VOD review and practice and knowing each role, it should come secondhand to a lot of you. Recognize the matchups in your team compositions. Now, how do the team compositions stack up against each other? And I know in lower elo, pretty much anything that's not like super competitive, it makes no sense, right? You can have a counter matchup and you think to yourself, oh, that guy counters him, but then they end up losing their counter matchup and things like that. So a lot of times it doesn't make much sense, but use that as a starting ground as to predicting how the match is going to go out and what areas you need to pressure. So what champion's going to be strong in the early game, what champion's going to falter off, who needs help here, who needs help in the late game, who needs help in the early game, things like that. And even less than recognizing the matchups, I think the one point that fails to fall into recognition is looking at your teammates constantly. They're feeding horrendously, sure. They may be doing really poorly. That doesn't mean that you need to completely disregard them. As I mentioned before, you need them. So, you need to be constantly looking at what they're doing. Look how they lane. How well can they last hit? Are they doing something intelligent? Do they use their summoners in a somewhat useful manner? Are they just good at the game and perhaps are happening to have a bad one? Do they show some promise of skill? If they do, make a note of that because that's a person that's on your side. That's somebody that you can help and they will help you by contributing to the game in a positive manner. So you see the guy that is keeping up in CS even though he's 0-4. It's like, okay, you know what? this guy's probably has a good idea as to what to do. If he's 0-4, maybe he's had a bad game, maybe he's getting camped. That's for you to determine if it's just him having a bad game and if he can actually contribute after that. But more importantly than that is looking at the champion and seeing who you can help regardless of how well they're doing. Now, a good example is a Katarina. Let's say you have a Katarina on your team and that cat is 0-5, but she's against a team comp that has zero disruption against her. Well, you might want to think about helping that cat out because, you know, if it hits the late game, she's going to be able to tear things up because the enemy has no tools to shut her down. Let's say you're against a team composition that offers only one kind of damage. You're against an all AD comp or a mostly magic damage composition. Well, you might want to think about helping the tank out on your team because now if he itemizes full armor or full MR, he'll be able to live endlessly in a team fight. So you want to help that guy out. Or if you have a Kog'Maw and you're versus a comp that offers little to no hard engage, then well, that Kog'Maw is going to be a good person to help out because he can snowball towards the mid and the late game because he's going to be in a much safer position than if he were versus a hard engage composition. So looking at the champions and what they're versing is definitely very important. And this is the one that I think can carry you the most, as well as the last point. So the last one I have is assuming that everyone feeds but you. This means that you're very good at getting a lead. Congratulations. Probably doesn't mean that you're good at keeping it. Now, what that means isn't that you throw away the lead completely. What that means is that as you get a kill, the bounty on your head, not just the actual bounty of you're the gold that you give after you die increases, but figuratively, how much value you have on the game goes up significantly, specifically in pressure. Because think about your team as some sort of castle defending against orcs or whatever attacks castles, and you have five teammates. Think about it. Okay, four teammates now. Castle, four walls, and on each wall is your lane. You got mid lane on one wall, top lane on another, bottom lane another, jungle in the other. And whichever role you're playing, if you everybody else but the side that you're holding is feeding, that means that the only hope, the last remaining hope for your castle to not be completely pillaged and everybody inside killed and whatever unspeakable things happen in there is your wall. So you need to give 0 inches to the enemy. This means that once you get a kill, once you get a CS advantage, once you get a tower advantage, you cannot die because you're the last hope of your team. And by you dying, you give up instant pressure on the map. They've got nothing to fear anymore. Think about it. If the team score is 10-10, but your score is 10 kills and everybody else is only death, that means that if you're out of the game for that 30-second death time, let's say 30 seconds, that means that the enemy is fighting against a team composition when that is 0-10. That means that the score now is 0-10. You give the enemy a 30-second window to play a game where the score is 0-10. And you don't want that because when you're that far ahead, you can take huge advantages. That's why your death is so meaningful. Now, you are behind as a team. If the score is 10-10, but all the kills are on you, you're behind as a team. So you need to make riskier plays. But that means that your plays aren't going to be as risky as in the sense of putting yourself in risk of dying. You're going to put your teammates in risk of dying, don't get me wrong. They're already dying a lot. Their death is insignificant almost, but your own is not. So the plays that you're going to make are going to be completely dependent on you not dying. So go for a roam. Oh, I might die here. I don't think so. Go somewhere else. Oh, go try to 1v1 this guy. It looks like there could be somebody else. not gonna do it. As you get kills in the game and as you start snowballing your lead, you need to prioritize kills less and less and less unless you have a complete control of your mechanical prowess. Now, I remember I played a game in, I believe, Bronze a couple of weeks back in which I was like 20-0 on Ari, but the game felt almost hopeless. We still won in the end. But the key to winning those games is devaluing kills, keeping yourself alive, and focusing on objective kills, meaning turrets. If you're not the jungler, it's difficult to force a dragon. I get that. But it's not difficult to force towers, whichever role you're playing in. This means a lot of map movement. You're not playing against SKT guys. You're not playing versus G Tigers. You're not facing TSM. You're not facing Fnatic. You're facing solo queue people. You're not going to be punished for mistakes. So you need to look for opportunities to go into somebody else's lane and force down a turret. Now, why do you need to do that? Because one, that offers a situation in which that you can fight with more often than not even numbers. You don't want to. The only way that you're going to lose is if you get outnumbered, most likely. If you have a big lead, you need to be outnumbered to be killed. That's a no-brainer. If you get outnumbered, you will lose. So if you go into a lane, you now have anywhere from one to the entire team backing you up. One meaning one teammate. So going into the lane makes fights pretty even, which is great. You're not gonna get ganked very much that easily when you're doing a certain push. Now, you're very strong. You've gotten kills, you've snowballed, you have a CS lead, you're the peak of your team. Why would you put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be constantly fighting? Well, this is what I mean by snowballing the game to help you because you need your teammates. Your teammates are feeding. They cannot hold their own versus versus their counterparts. They don't have enough gold to hold their own. They've been losing lane horrendously. They can't last hit for shit, and they don't know what they're doing. But they do know that if they have items, they could probably do something about it. Or at least they will be respected a little bit more. Hey, maybe they buy an Infinity Edge, pray to RNGesus, and then end up getting a 1v1 kill for no reason, just because. That can happen. Even if they're down 0-5, you get 3 crits in a row with an Infinity Edge, you win a lot of 1v1s that way. So, you need to funnel gold into your teammates so that they can keep pressure on the enemy. The way you funnel gold into your teammates, if they have no idea what you're doing, is you literally hand it to them by taking towers. So if you go and you take mid tower, you take top tower, you take bottom tower, you've already given them about 1,000 something gold. I don't know if that's actually 1,000, but you've given him some gold. You're giving them gold so that they can actually purchase the items that they could not gather by themselves. You're babysitting them through their item purchases, and you have to constantly do this throughout the game. And then once you get all the towers that you can, get the objectives, you get everything. If you have not evened out the game, or if you're still losing horrendously, I don't know how you'd still be losing horrendously if you've gotten every single outer turret or every single turret, with the exception of the base ones. But you shouldn't be because that really doesn't make sense. You should have gotten gold into your teammates by roaming and keeping yourself alive. By doing this, you allow them to be remaining relevant in the game and they can pressure the lanes. In solo queue, you usually don't group as a 5-man unit and try to do things as five. It usually stays laning for a large part of the time. People are fighting in bottom lane when there's no towers at 40 minutes, things like that. So you need to make sure that they can hold their own against their counterparts, which means that funneling gold keeps them there. And if everybody's kept in lanes, 1v1ing or 2v2ing whoever they're fighting against, this frees you up because you know better and you can start moving around the map. And then you're going to do the exact same thing. You're just going to keep roaming from lane to lane, identifying who can be useful, helping that person out, and getting an objective out of it. When you're ahead as a team, the plays that you make need to be less risky and more calculated. The reason being is that you're the one with the lead. The enemy should be the one thinking, shit, what do we do, man? He's really strong. We need to do something to actually beat him or we're gonna lose because he's gonna carry. Keep that one in mind. When you're ahead, the risk diminishes for you. When you're behind is when you need to be making the risky plays. But if the team is feeding, you're not the one that needs to be taking those huge risks. You put your teammates into the fire. You hang back, see what you can do, then go in for the play when needed and keep snowballing that way. They become pretty much bodies that you can toss into the fire and block bullets for you. That's how you should view them. Just because, when they do poorly, that's what their job becomes. So hopefully this was remotely useful to you guys in winning when your team feeds. I know that it's very useful for me. If you have any topics or future videos that you'd like to see, feel free to let me know as well as what you thought of this current video.